welcome to LFGwBG. I'm BG. I'm your host. And as you know, our show is all about highlighting people that have overcome adversity or that you haven't heard of. However, they're people either you want to hear of or you're going to hear of, or maybe it's just that badass down the street that had an amazing story and you never knew it. So we're excited to highlight rarities. And what I think is a rarity are occasionally, as you saw with Jay Walt and you saw with our high school graduation episode, we highlight young athletes, young entrepreneurs, young people that are on the rise. And I've got one of those here today in John Mark Stevenson, who I've known since, man, probably 8, 9 years old, somewhere around there. Maybe middle school.
9, 10, something like that. And
6th grade. Yeah, whatever that
100%.
was. Yes, 6th grade, and was on the football team and played with TK and got to watch him. Got a great family. Know your mom and dad very well. And
100%.
It's a great thing to have you here, my man, and to see where you're going and where you're growing.
I'm excited. Where I'm growing, emphasis on that, growing every single day. Every single Saturday on the football field, BG's voice is in all of our heads as we're warming up. During every single game, you make a big play, it's BG calling your name out, and so that was very memorable. Probably the best announcer I'll ever play under in anything. And best thing ever. I think you should be on UFC. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh man, thank you.
What's my opinion?
Well, Dana, give me a call, man. I'm listening. I'd love to get with Daniel and those guys. Annick's the best. Rogan. But no, man, I enjoyed that. I got to call their football games all the way through middle school and then high school a little bit. And you had some bumpy roads, right? So let's just start there. I mean, let's just start with, where are you from and where did you come from? What was your childhood like, and how did you kind of become this person you are today?
Yeah, so a big chunk of my growing up life was spent. I was born in Hoover, Alabama. Small town, not the type of town you think of when you think of Alabama. And, it's a little preppy, but everyone, it's like there's one big circle, and then it's like everything is right in that zone. The high school I was zoned for, Hoover, they had a show back in the day for their football team, big old football team, big old high school, and it was just like that was the spot, that was Hoover. So growing up, everything is so much just slower over there. The trends are slower. The way that people talk is just so much different compared to hot Atlanta, like where we are. It's just so much faster. So my dad's from here, born and raised. My mom is from the same place I grew up, Hoover, Alabama. They got married, spent a bunch of years in Alabama, and it was always my dad's dream was to come back here. Growing up on the lake, he loved the lake. Just being in Georgia, there's nothing like the feeling that you have of where you grew up, especially as a man. Like that's where your roots are. So when he had the opportunity to come back in 2016, I think it was, I had just turned 12. We came over here, and man, it's like instantly into the fast lane. I remember, like, just for an example, I think when I moved here, like I was just 12 years old, like I've been interested in girls, starting to get interested in all these things, like like what can I do to get be cool? What can I do to have people? Your testosterone's starting to go. You're starting to mature a little bit. You think you're starting to mature a little bit. Little do you know. But getting over here, I don't think I had ever even hugged a girl or anything. And then I get over to Alabama, and just that summer, it's just like, boom, instantly, huge change. Everything's different. And throw that on top of the fact that 6th grade in Atlanta is my first year ever going to public school. So I had been hybrid homeschooled sort of growing up. So I went to this classical school 2 days a week, and 3 days a week I would be on this curriculum at home with my mom. I'm not your average, homeschool kid, but I really think that gave my learning a big advantage, because I was studying Latin and just reading all this classical literature, learning how to write, learning how to speak, how to think, outside of what the government is indoctrinating us in. And so that really just gave a huge base. And then I move over here, I'm instantly public school. There's so much more people. The trends are different. The music's different. The thinking is different. People have phones, and I didn't even have a phone when I got over here. And it was just all this that just instantly came into play. And it was great. I definitely fell into a lot of stuff down the road, but I think it is 100% been a blessing that we moved over here, because I I don't know where I would be if, you know, I was still living in Alabama. So much slower. I don't know if I would have been able to grow at the rate that I did.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, and speaking of growth, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned is change. I think change 100%. Is important into personal growth and development and adversity, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you came on. I remember you. You weren't the thickest young man.
Not at all.
You were a little skinny, we'd call you.
Yeah.
But fast and fearless, and just run into things headstrong, head down.
Head down.
Not always the smartest way,
yeah.
But in that, man, you just had that attack, and so you kind of. You were a good football player, but you also liked other sports. You're athletic. So you started like BMX racing.
Yeah, so downhill mountain biking. I did like BMX. Yeah, it's all kind of into the thing. Like I like to ride BMX for the trick aspect, but just the shooting down the mountain on a big old bike with suspension and all that stuff. It was really cool, and we didn't have many you know, mountain bike trails in Alabama. Like it's decently flat here unless you go more north, but in Alabama, like where I was, it was even more flat. And there's like a couple things. There's like a mall, some restaurants, and like my neighborhood, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything like that. And Allatoona Creek trails are right down the road. I started going there like over the summer because I didn't have a bunch of friends right when I moved here. And I picked that up, and I just was like, wow, like this is great. I really like this. It was dangerous. It was an adrenaline rush, and it was like something new that I could like get better and expand at. And I've got that hyper obsessive focus. So I have decent skill at a lot of things that I pick up, but unless I just hone in, I'll never reach my full potential because it's like I always seem to just like, unless that is the only thing I'm hyper focused on, I don't care enough. And that's been my downfall in a lot of areas and caused me to not grow in my discipline as much as I can, because when I'm hyper focused on something, every single day I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But the things that I'm not hyper focused on, I don't always have that constant stimulation of just wanting to be the best.
Right.
I'll find myself lacking, and I'll find myself not giving that effort that I am capable of.
Yeah.
And that's been my downfall in a lot of areas, especially with sports that I just didn't love just ferociously with everything in me. And when that also helps me to shine. And when I do have that hyper obsession, nothing's stopping me. I'm focused. I won't even eat, like nothing. I'm just solely focused on my mission. But it's like, for me, I've had to learn to bridge that gap between, you know, all or nothing, because you still got to do the things that you don't want to do. You still got to do the steps that it takes to get there. Because while I maybe have some skill naturally at this, I still have to do those things to separate me and, you know, put me into the 1% and not just be in the average.
Yeah, you got to be, as David Goggins says, uncommon amongst the uncommon.
100%.
Right?
100%.
So you start riding, you start really getting into it, and you started competing.
I did. So, I mean, it took a while. I had a lot to learn, but I've always had good balance, and I loved it, and I started progressing all the time, and it held me back a little because, you know, I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive to the trails or anything, but I would just wake up, I would go get on my bike, I would practice, and there's this huge community on YouTube, you know, everything. There's like Red Bull mountain bike, everything, and I just dove into just mountain bike. And if anyone knows anything about any of the bike scene, road bikes, anything, it's expensive.
Yeah.
It is really expensive. I used to think before I got into it, I would be like, $1,000 bike? Like, who would ever need that? It's all the same. And, you know, end of my mountain biking career, you know, I was riding on a $6,000 bike. And I could say
they're running up to $9,000 and $10,000.
Yeah, and it's absolutely wild. And, I mean, unless you actually get in the space, you wouldn't realize, like, the engineering and like, what goes into those beautiful pieces of machines. But, man, I fell head over heels in love, like, with the sport of mountain biking. And it was almost detrimental because I didn't want to do anything else. Like,
right.
It took away from my love for football. It took away from, you know, even family and stuff, because I had that hyper obsession. We'd go anywhere. I could not think about anything. Like, we went on a family hike. I'm like, oh, I wish I was riding my bike right now. Like, I want to be doing this. And my dad, like, my parents would be like, shh, like, shut up, stop. Like, enjoy the moment for a second. But I just cannot. With anything that I pour my heart into, I cannot. I'm thinking about it 24/7.
Yeah, I think that's a characteristic of successful people because,
100%.
and there's probably listeners that are like, man, I don't focus well on most things, but then there's certain things that, man, I just dial it in. Well, if you can find that talent with what will provide you a living, a healthy lifestyle, man, it's great, but so's the counter of that. If you find something that's bad for you, you find something that may kill you, you equally dive into those things as well. 100%. So you really have to be careful, because when you're that driven and passionate of an individual and you get kind of hyper-focused or OCD with your passion, man, I always say anything that's your biggest strength can be your biggest weakness. So that driven is what has, as we'll talk later, transformed your body and has you ready to start competing in bodybuilding and all that you're doing. However, it also caused some challenges. So I think people hearing that resonate with that. Now, physically, as you're growing, but you're still rather skinny kid. You're not the biggest, thickest guy, but you had abs, you had the muscle, and you could see it was forming in you. But then, what adversity did you come over in your time in middle school and high school? There was kind of something that you had to battle, and most kids, I think, right there struggle and may not come back from that. Talk a little bit about that.
So I guess we can start with the my first, and we'll blend right into the biggest thing that threw me over, literally threw me over the bars. But I guess you can start with like my first little, experience with a woman. And when we moved here from Atlanta and I got involved with this girl, and we probably dated or whatever for like 8-9 months, and that was my first experience with like toxic relationship, like arguing, all this stuff, like parents, things going on and everything. And so I go from that, and I'm riding bikes and everything, and I finally get out of that relationship. And as like a 13-year-old, that's messing with your hormones, messing with your head. You can't focus on anything else because you think that's all that matters right now. And then we go into 7th grade, summer going into 8th grade, and I was racing, I was having fun, I was getting better, but like I said, I didn't have a car, so I like relied on my parents to take me to all these races. And mountain biking is very expensive, so I would work my butt off to pay for all my parts, my repairs and everything, teach myself how to repair bikes. I would do all that stuff myself, but there's only so many places. I've got 2 siblings, and my dad has a job, and my mom has a job. They can't take me all across the world to go to all these mountain bike races that I want to go to. And I was like, I'm going to become a pro mountain biker. I'm going to become a pro mountain biker. And I would hold that against him. Why aren't y'all taking me to all these places? Like, why aren't you believing in me? And it wasn't that. It wasn't realistic,
Right.
And so I did go to some races, though, and I was getting good, doing some races around here. So me and my dad went up to this mountain bike park in Asheville, North Carolina, called Bailey Mountain Bike Park. And that was the first real bike park I had been to. And when you compare bike parks to just like your local trails, it's a big old difference. That's like going skiing in Gatlinburg and being like, oh, I skied down a Black Diamond.
Right.
And going skiing in, Colorado and saying I went down a Black Diamond.
Yeah.
Big old difference. It's like a little hill and an actual mountain. So I'm up there, and, it wasn't anything out of my skill level or anything, but, still it's different when you're hitting some big old jumps around here in Allatoona Creek, or if you're, up in Bailey Mountain Bike Park and you're hitting some big old jumps, and then there's a cliff beside you. It's just a different aspect. Everything feels off. But I was so excited, hadn't eaten all morning because, I'm hyper. I'm excited because this is my stuff that I'm doing. And we get up there. I'm having a fun time. My dad is like, you're insane. Like, he's not really enjoying himself. He's just there for me. But, he's riding with me. He's having fun, but he's not riding down the things that I'm riding down. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, Dad, let's go to this jump trail that I've really wanted to go on. And I had not even really warmed up because we had driven like 6 hours in the car, and my legs like don't even have blood in them, and I'm already trying to go. I want to send these jumps. And I had always had this like fearless when it came into me. I was like, oh no, like I'll ride out of it. It'll be fine, because I was good at like almost crashing, but not when it did come to it.
Saving
that I was gonna,
it. You were good at saving it. Yeah.
And like I was good. Nothing was outside of my skill, but we go up to these jumps, and I'm like, wow, this is sweet. Like, this is so cool. I'm ready to send. But I should have ridden the park more and got a feel of it. I forgot to mention, I had just gotten a brand new bike, and I got a size a little too big because that was supposed to be my steed for the next like year or two. And so I was still breaking it in, everything, didn't even know how it felt. And I'm just ready to send these big old 50, 60-foot jumps on a trail called Rick James. So I go and I'm like, Dad, like stand down there. I was like, well, I'll hit these and then like we can go down and we can get lunch. And I'm up at the top. And I still remember like it's...
And this is a 60-foot jump?
Yeah, the jump that is coming to my doom is a 60-foot jump.
60-foot jump.
So the trail ranges from like, little doubles that are like 20, 30 foot to like, 50, 60-foot tables and stuff like that. And I'd hit plenty of jumps like that before, but what's different about, parks around here is everything is not really trail speed because there's not super steep hills. So if you have a jump like that, you're pedaling to have enough speed to clear those jumps, even if you're going. Now, in bike parks, they're built so well and they're built on a mountain that's like you get one pedal stroke and you're just flowing that whole trail because it's so steep that you don't need any pedals.
Right.
So my natural instinct is like, I'm like 60-foot jump, pedal really hard. So I'm going downhill and I'm pedaling really hard. I hit the first roller and my bike's a little big. I'm coming down and I pre-roll the roller and I'm a little forward on the compression and I feel it and it's a little weird. And I go over the first jump and I overshot it a little bit, but it was fine. And then I come down with so much speed that as I go into the compression of the next lip, it's hard to explain if people have never ridden like mountain bikes, but my front suspension and because I'm on a full suspension bike, my rear suspension, it compresses so hard and I'm going so fast that it just sends me up and then over. So I'm like this. And I remember going so fast. And as soon as I got to the lip, I'm like, I'm going way too fast and I'm about to just go right over the handlebars. Yeah. And so I go and I remember just shooting right up and being probably a solid 22 feet in the air going over a 50, 60-foot jump. And I see my dad down there on the left side and I'm like, okay, I can bail and it might hurt and I'd be able to roll out of it, but I'm like, but I'll be fine. I'll just be able to, land on my front and go back down because on my bike before I would have been able to because it wasn't as big.
Right.
This bike, it's a lot bigger. I'm not used to it. I go and I hit and the last thing I remember is I watched the landing pass me and I'm down at the flat where the landing's already rolled out and I'm like, oh shit. And then boom, I remember nothing else. The last thing I remember is seeing that. I hit my front wheel, slammed into the ground, slammed my shoulder into the embankment. My handlebar went into my stomach, ruptured my spleen, the top of my pancreas, just absolutely destroyed me. My dad thought I got a concussion, broke my shoulder, everything. And so I'm sitting there and I'm completely unconscious for any of this. So I don't remember any of this, but I'm throwing up chunks of blood and literally pieces of my spleen out of me. And my dad says I'm just saying the same words over and over and over again. And we're up on a mountain in North Carolina.
Right.
How's he going to get me down? He
Right.
doesn't know. So we're waiting. And that's on one of the most extreme jump trails in the park. So it's when's the next person going to come down?
Very remote, right.
Yeah. When's the next person going to come down? You don't know. So my dad is just doesn't know what to do, anything. Eventually, this kid comes down and he's like, are y'all okay? And he's like, no, he's not okay. And so he goes down the trail. 30 minutes later, the guy who owns the park is an EMT. He comes up on a four-wheeler. They get me up, throw me over. They've got to pull me back up the trail to the beginning, and it's insanely steep. And it's two grown men, and I'm just dead weight, and they're trying to pull me up, pull my bike up there. Eventually, they get me down. They got some electrolytes in me. I don't remember any of this. Apparently, I was just murmuring all this stuff. Drives me to the hospital, and I get there, and I'm throwing up more and more. He said I went through probably 7 or 8 bags, just kept throwing up. They had to put me in a wheelchair, and I was talking, but I don't remember any of it.
Right.
And they're his spleen is completely ruptured. His pancreas, the dorsal third is ruptured completely. He's going to have to go into surgery. And so this, that was probably at 1 p.m. that we were at the park that happening. And then, it's already, by the time that's said and done and I'm having surgery, it's 10, 11 o'clock, and my dad's calling my mom, and he's like, hey, 'cause she doesn't know what's going on. He hasn't texted her or anything. She just thinks that we've like had a great day and everything. He's like, John Mark's about to go into surgery. Like, I need you to come up here. So it's like, I'm going into surgery at like midnight in Asheville, North Carolina. And my mom's driving up there. I had a 2.5-hour surgery, removed my spleen, top of my pancreas, everything. And I remember waking up that next morning or whenever I woke up and just like, it just felt very surreal. Like the weight of what was happening, like didn't hit on me. I was just like, oh, got in a bike accident and just had a major surgery and an organ removed. And I don't think it really hit me until I looked down at my stomach and saw 21 staples all the way down my stomach and like tried to stretch out, and the staples were like pulling on my stomach, and it was the worst pain I've ever been in. And there was a drainage tube coming out of my stomach with fluid leaking all into it. Oh. And I was like, man, this is something. And I just remember being in extreme pain, and I couldn't eat for 7 days. I couldn't drink water. They had an IV in me, but it was just pumping. Like I couldn't taste that. And I just remember being so thirsty, like just begging them for water, like begging them, like, can I eat something? And it was hard. That was probably the hardest thing I had ever gone through, because I mean, I like, in all honesty, like I had, besides like,
well, and you're how old?
Yeah, I just turned 14.
Yeah, so it was the hardest thing you had dealt with in 14 years.
The hardest thing I dealt with in 14 years.
And it was a hard thing. I mean, like an adult would have a tough time with that. So it was a lot at a young age. You really, I remember the whole team. We all kind of rallied around, heard what had happened. I remember like that whole thing like it's yesterday. Mm-hmm. And you were in positive spirits. Did you find yourself finding frustration or negative vibes coming to you? Did you ever feel like you couldn't, really overcome this, or you were going to be like damaged from this? Or did you always just know like, man, you know what, I'm going to bounce back?
I don't think that I thought about it in that kind of despairing way. I remember when I was in the hospital, like just being like, get me out of this exact situation. Like I can't sleep. They're pumping me full of like as many cc's of morphine as they can legally give me, and it's doing nothing. And I'm like, it hurts so bad. Like, please, like, let me eat, and like waking up all through the night to come, like, they're giving me shots. So I can't sleep. There's like all these needles in me. I'm feeling absolutely terrible. I'm high out of my mind on all these drugs. And like, I can't get up. I can't do anything. I'm literally just in the bed, no food, nothing. So it's like, and I'm still like, gross. Like I've got dirt on me and stuff. Like they cleaned me when they gave me surgery, but I feel nasty, and it was bad. But I've always just had this overwhelming like optimism. No matter what's going on, I might despair for a moment, but like thinking long term, no matter what I've been through, it's always been like, like this too shall pass. Like I'll be able to get through it. And in the moment, I didn't know how much I would learn from it, but there's still things that like I'm like that I learned from that experience today. And like it was like, if I could go back and not go through that, would I? Absolutely not. Because like who would I be today without it? And there's like I try to live my whole life like that. There's things I did last week that I don't agree with at all, and I'm like, that was extremely weak-minded, or that was a terrible situation. I wish I wouldn't have had to go through that, but that is building character on this, this journey of life that we're going on. And without all these moments of adversity, like there's no way to become a better man. The depth of your struggle determines the height of your success. So how else am I going to become, the best version of myself, put purpose over pleasure every single day, and strive to become that great being that I was put on this earth to be without all of those trials and tribulations? It's not going to happen.
Well, you don't ever feel the joys of success 100%. If you don't feel the pain of struggle.
100%.
Right. So at a young age, you learned that lesson, and you had to overcome a lot physically. You had to overcome a lot mentally. And then you kind of find yourself getting back into a situation where you're back athletic, but like, what happened? Did you finish your sports career? Did you get back into mountain biking? Did you find a lull where you were this athlete that did a lot of sports and now you kind of feel a little lost, or did you kind of, what was your emotion after the injury? And I know you had the optimism, but what did you do, and how did your career end in high school the way you wanted, or what happened?
I don't think I would say it's the way I wanted, but it's definitely the best path that I could have taken it. But I'm still figuring that out. Let me backtrack a little bit. So when that accident happened, I went into the hospital. I think I was about 145 pounds at about maybe like 5'9", 5'10" or something. I'm like 14. And when I got out of the hospital and I got home, I was 106 pounds.
Wow.
And that was like 6 days later. 106 pounds. So I'm like hunched over. I can barely even walk by myself. I'm hunched over because the staples are pulling me down, because they stapled me while I was, sitting like this in a bed. So I can't even like stand up fully. My back is hurting. Everything is like, I can't like laugh or move because it just pulls on me. And once I'm out of the hospital, my mom refused they give me any more medicine after about like the second or third day. And I was begging her, and she was like, no. She didn't, the drugs they gave me to take home, she was like, absolutely not. Wouldn't let me take any of them. So I'm just like raw dogging the pain like the next couple weeks, like barely slept. I would be coughing and it would be the most insane pain in my life. But I remember just looking at my stomach and my arms and just being like, I can't do that. Like, I just felt so weak and I felt so vulnerable. When I got out of the hospital and I could put on some normal clothes, I had to walk into the bathroom holding my mom's. I went into this hotel bathroom because all of a sudden I had to go to the bathroom so bad, and I like hadn't been in like 6 days. And I'm holding my mom's arm. I've still got like, the tape on me with the little cloth from the IVs that have been on me. And I literally felt like defenseless. Like if someone would have come up to me and tried to like take my mom or something like that, I would have been helpless. Like I would have just been able to been snapped in half and been brittle. And as a man, like I'd never felt like that in my life. I was still a little kid, but I was like, oh, like I can take it. How we all feel when we're little. And that moment, I was just like, this has got to change. This has got to change. And the amount of time that I got to just meditate and marinate on that, I was like, as soon as I can move again, do push-ups again, all I was focused on was just building my body back strong. And I think that might have come from just like my body feeling so broken. I was missing an organ, the top of another organ, and I just had all that happen to me. And I was just like, I am going to just turn myself into an absolute just monster physically. And I wasn't thinking like bodybuilding, all this stuff, but I was like, I'm going to get in the gym. I was just so determined to do that. And that just kept growing as I like got back on my bike, and I was like weak. I couldn't do the things that I was supposed to. I was back on my bike after like a few weeks. My mom would scream at me because she was so mad. But I was like, I have to go get back. And I was doing push-ups like through the pain. Like they were like, you're not supposed to. It was like a 9-month recovery time. And they're like, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do this. I was doing them because I was like, I don't care. Like, I can't sit there. And that might have been bad for me because, like, it hurt throughout the past, like, few years. I think only, like, this last, like, year or two, my stomach has stopped hurting when I'm squatting in the gym and stuff. Like, I used to be in football in the weight room, and I would squat so hard, and I would look down, and my shirt would be bleeding because my scar would be bleeding through my shirt from just the pressure on my core. Because I had my abdominals literally like I was a woman having a C-section, ripped in half.
Yeah.
And they had to grow back together. And so that was just like absolutely just lit a fire under me to just become like, never again will I feel that weak or vulnerable. Just not even just with my body, but like mentally. And as much as I wish I could say like right then and there, like I changed and I was on the path up, it didn't go like that. Obviously, I got in the gym. That gave me a hint of, a really dark place. But it still took some more years for me to finally, like, for that light to go off and me to be like, enough of this, like, enough living in the moment just for, like, the next pleasure I can get, and, like, really learning that as a man, like, unless you are fulfilling your purpose or unless you are constantly taking steps towards achieving your mission, you're going continue to feel empty.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you get that instant gratification or, you know, that next little achievement that really doesn't mean anything, unless it is fulfilling you through serving others or fulfilling your purpose, you're still going to feel it's just going to be empty.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a big old timeline between me getting out of the hospital, getting back on my bike, and where I am today. But it always reflects back to that one moment being like switch in the timeline. We moved to Georgia, and then that happens, and it was like, I feel like that like stepped me into like a new life. Like I literally feel like those are two separate lives between this one that I've lived and that one growing up.
But what you're also, I mean, basically we've spent a lot of time talking about the adversity, right? I mean, the accident and all of that. So it's like, here you say it was this great move, right? But then you have your spleen, your stomach gets pulled out on a table, you know, you lose some pancreas, you know, just little things like
just
that.
a little bit of pancreas.
Your mom doesn't want you to get addicted to morphine, and
Yeah.
you know, at 14 years old. So, you know, what I love that I hear, John Mark, and what I've seen, right? Because I think people watching, you hear it, and I hope you resonate with that story, because everybody's got some struggle. But you had a lot, and it was out of your control, right? And everybody, when they feel out of control, feels vulnerable, right? And when you feel vulnerable, you are weak. It's what the word definition of vulnerable is, in that sense that you're open to someone attacking. You're open to injury. You're open to death. You're open to losing your job. You're open to divorce. You're open to, you know, ruining your relationship, your business. You're, you know, those things can happen. But at the end of the day, your mindset determines what happens next, because yesterday stops at midnight.
100%.
Right?
Doesn't matter what you did.
That's it.
Doesn't matter good or bad, what you went through or what you achieved, restarts. As soon as that head hits the
Absolutely.
pillow, restarts.
I was listening to, shout out to Chad Wright, former Navy SEAL, podcaster of 3 to 7 Project, good friend, and he came up and spoke to our company. And Chad talked about, he just ran this Cocodona 250. And this is a 250-mile race in Arizona. So it would change elevation, right? It would go from flatland and 100-degree heat to then elevations up into like mountains and negative, or I think like 4 degrees, you know? So it would go from that to night and day and desert to snow. And he just talked about, you know, the farthest he'd ever ran was 131 miles. And he said at 100 miles, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right. He said 100 miles, he wanted to quit. His body felt bad. He's a tough dude. He said, I very seldom ever let myself. I mean, a Navy SEAL, I think 11, 12 years in the SEALs. Yeah. I mean, he's a tough son of a bitch, right? He is a tough guy. And he said, man, I'm going to quit. And he had a talk with his brother. And not only did he finish, but he finished well.
Yeah.
And he talked about that last mile, right? And so he's got a great movie out, 1 More Mile, or 1 Mile Out. It's on YouTube. You can check it out with Chad. But it's phenomenal to see this person go through this and have a support staff around him and just persevere. He said every morning he got up and you'd see him limping. He goes, it wasn't my body. He said it was my feet. They were cracked and they hurt. And so it took a while to get him normal, but he just mentally powered through. And when you talk about what you talk about, or anybody has a situation where they're going through something uncontrollable, the only thing you can control is you.
It's that mindset.
It's you.
100%.
And it starts exactly right, John Mark. It starts up here. It starts in your head. And so as you sit there, what I hear is you're visualizing a comeback. You verbalize the comeback. And then through time, you know, wins and losses, mistakes and failures, and no one's perfect. You find this rhythm. And all of a sudden, you find a connection and things start to connect. And now you get into a level of, okay, man, now I know where I'm supposed to be. Now I feel purpose. Now I feel purpose driven. And that's a powerful place to be. And because you've went through struggle, and because anybody that does, they're tougher, they're stronger. You know, I've learned the most, not by my wins,
By your losses.
by my fuck ups.
Yeah.
You know, my mistakes, my screw ups, the things that I regret, in the sense of I wish I wouldn't have did that. But I don't really want to have regrets, because if you learn from a mistake, it becomes a lesson. But if you don't learn from that mistake, then what ends up happening is it stays a mistake your entire life and it lives with you, and you're, you know, the 32-year-old that got beat up by the bully, and because you didn't stand up for yourself, you carry that with you to this day.
And then you start projecting on others from that void that's in you. That's why, do you know Wes Watson?
I do know Wes, yeah. I don't know him personally, but I love his whole
I'd love to know him personally.
motivation.
He's a little hardcore. I like it personally.
Former prison inmate, you know, he's a tough dude.
But he's just
Talk
really
about persevering and overcoming.
Oh, 100%,
Right.
man. 10 years, like that's like, you know, half of my life, so that seems wild. But he just talks about, you know, being sitting on his rack at 3:30 in the morning because they would do their rounds at like 3:45, and that's why he still to this day wakes up at 2:45 in the morning, no matter what. 16 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's when he would write out his thoughts before everyone is up, because, you know, when they're doing their rounds and everything, like, you can't focus. But he would do that, and he's like, in those times when he was just reflecting, like, it was just him, like, you know, your celly's asleep, like, there's no one else you haven't spoke to. And, you know, I know nothing about this. This is just me witnessing someone else's
And I hope you never do,
experience.
by the way.
Yeah, me as well. But and just, you know, those thoughts come to you, just like, you're lonely, like, you haven't spoke to family, like, he talks about, he's like, you literally, after that many years, like, you start to not exist anymore. He was like, I got out and I went to go get a cell phone, and they were like, who are you? Like, you have no papers, you don't even have a social security number, like, who are you? And so, you know, that thought, like, is just wild. But that depth is what turned him into this absolute just hardcore monster. And he realized, even in the pen, like, the only way that I'll feel fulfilled is not by, you know, the drugs that I can do, like, how can I bang in here and, you know, be the baddest motherfucker in here, because, like, he cut up somebody's face, and he got sent in the shoe, so he was, like, isolated by himself, everything. And he realized, he's like, the only way that I can feel this purpose is not by pleasing myself or exalting myself, but it's by serving others. So when he started to work out, and this is kind of how mine is, it's like just that hint of compounding discipline, because discipline does compound like a fucking snowball. And he realized, like, I like this. Like, he could work out, it would change his whole mood, his whole mentality, get into flow state. And he started doing that on like other inmates that he knew in there, and just teaching them about, like, carbs and everything. He says he used to sell his dessert and stuff in the pen for, like, more protein from other people so he could get his macros in. And he quit dope, drinking, everything, because they have all that in jail. Like, you know, it's just different. It's like a little mafia in there. And he was like, the inmates just would start to, like, be like, but I need it. Like, I need this. I feel so lonely. I do this. And he's like, you don't understand that feeling, that loneliness, that emptiness, that, like, feeling like there's, like, a knife in your stomach. It's emotional, but it almost feels like a physical pain, you know, when you're up late at night. That is what you need to get you to, you know, catapult you into that mindset of, like, only growth, only serving others, only serving my purpose. And I think
what you do is you're resonating with that, right? 100%. I would also say there's other people that resonate differently, right? Mm-hmm. Like, don't need that rigidness, but need to be pushed, need to get outside the box. Yep. So I think the commonality of all motivation is resonating with your mentor, getting Tim Ferriss says you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
100%.
Right? And so if you're driven by Wes Watson, and you're driven by E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher, and you're driven by Brad Lee or Grant Cardone or whoever, find somebody.
Hormozi.
Yeah, shout out to all of them. Colin O'Brady, Jesse Itzler, Chad Wright, Cam Haynes.
Bedros Koulian.
Yes, yes. Anybody that's real. And I think what you understand, Kill Rob Bailey, one of my favorites. Yeah. And, Dana Bailey is a former world champion bodybuilder. That if you don't know who they are, check them out. They're phenomenal. But you know what it is you either seek to improve and you seek to get your mental state where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And you said something earlier, and you said discipline compounds. And I love that statement, because motivation, like, I can motivate people, but motivation is like potential. It's shit you haven't done yet. right? Motivation just gets you pumped, but that motivation, like a drug, fades away. Discipline carries you through. Discipline lets you know where you need to go. Discipline wakes you up in the morning and says, you know what? I'm sore, I'm tired, but I'm going to get this cold plunge and I'm going to get my day started. Discipline says, man, you know what? I'm tired. I don't have a husband. I've got 3 kids. I'm working 2 jobs and I got to get up and run this. I don't have time to cold plunge because I can't afford a cold plunge. I got to go to work. And that discipline, right, is different for everybody. And so what I would encourage is anybody listening and hearing your story is find somebody that motivates you, because you and I were talking off camera before and you were saying how much you've gotten into the podcasting. And so you've taken that desire to learn and there's so much free education.
So much. It's
so
wild.
much free education that you can go out there and not owe debt, not have to listen to a professor that's never done it.
That's never done.
You know what I mean? And like in your world, it would be like a professor that's 300 pounds of fat telling you this is how you become a world champion bodybuilder.
Most of these PE teachers, I was always so entrepreneurial minded, because entrepreneurs are not going to make good, good employees for the most part. I mean, you can drive through it, but good classmates. Because I used to literally I told my marketing teacher at Harrison, I was like, how am I going to learn about marketing from you when like you're sitting here making, $50,000 a year? Like I have friends that make that in like half a month and they're just stacking cash, like working on their business.
Now I hear what you're saying, but I want to give anybody listening the credit of you can be a teacher and have 3 YouTube automation channels making $1 million a year, right?
And he told me, and I love this teacher. He told me he is actually the very first person I went to about my business idea. He put me in my place right there. He was like, I'll have you know, he's like, I've built and exited 3 businesses with my wife, and my dream was always to make enough money in my businesses that I never had to work again, and then go be a teacher so I could teach that to the kids. And I had questioned teachers all the way up through then and always been right. But then once he said that, and I think I had like a 70 in his class when he did that. As soon as he said that, every single day I was learning.
Yeah.
I was learning because I wanted to learn, because he actually knew it. But for the most part, it's not like that.
No, I agree with you.
But for the teachers that are like that, that's very respectful. But like dude, he wrote me a senior letter. Like I talked to him. I love that man. Shout out Coach Burton. But he, like, that's when it really put into perspective. I was like, okay,
if you've done it, I'll listen.
Yeah, but I also have to think like that was extremely immature of me, because like I'm this 16-year-old sophomore or whatever. Like why am even now, the more I learn, the more I realize that I don't know anything.
Yeah, but I will tell you this, John Mark, and for young listeners and for teenagers, high schoolers, young entrepreneurs, anybody that's getting started, your first is your worst. 100%. You have to develop a skill set that is not physical. It's really not even necessarily so much mental, but you have to develop a sense of a power of discernment. And that comes from either having a gift you can just read people, or trusting some people and getting burnt, still being trusting, but learning that you have to put people through a filter, right? Because, I grew up a minister's kid. I grew up in the church. I grew up around really, really great people. But I will say that there's a lot of challenges inside the church, just like there is anywhere. There's people that let you down. And so I saw that at a young age, where you see the worst in things, but you never put your faith in other men or man, because no one's coming to save you.
No one's coming to save you. I was about to say that one. That's the one, death by dishonor. No one else is coming to save you. You solely have to do this yourself. And I think, the amount of comforts that we have, like just being like a, lower middle class, like white kid in America, I didn't have any like needs growing up. I went through my fair share of struggles, but I never didn't know when I was going to get my next meal. I always had a place to sleep, everything like that. So just the comfort of just, always having that there for me. And once I truly realized, like, there was always just this in the back of my mind, like knowing like I'm meant for more, but I wasn't willing to put in the work and go through the journey like I'm going through now. Not to say that I've accomplished anything at all, because I haven't in the scheme of things, but I hadn't made that switch in my mind, I would be like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. But I just had this little like, maybe I'll just come across this magic, this magic mentor, and he's just gonna take me right there, and I'm just gonna have it achieved. And it's such a flawed fantasy, because no matter what, like it's like winning the lottery. Yeah. I used to think when I was younger, like, man, if I just won billions of dollars, that would be great. In full, like, genuine honesty, if I won the lottery, I would not accept it, because I think it would feel like my life was over. I would feel disgusted, because it's just like, you cannot enjoy something of that scale, of that magnitude, that you did not bleed for, that you did not like just grind in like hopelessness for, because like,
well, you can enjoy it, but you're not going to respect it.
Sure, but
right? I mean, if I give you a $5 million house, you're going to live in it and enjoy it.
Sure,
but you don't know the pain of what it takes to walk in there, because you didn't earn it. And I see what you're saying.
Really enjoy it though.
Oh yeah, it's a nice house. It's got a pool. It's got a king size bed. It's got one of those poles that women come to dance on sometimes. So yeah, you could have fun in it, but that doesn't mean you bought it. That doesn't mean you bought it, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean you blood. So anything that you can love things that you are gifted and given. 100%. I believe, but I know what you're saying. It's
harder to assign the true value to that thing, that if you did not, actually accommodate it, if it was just given to you.
I think you're always going to appreciate. And again, that's what this whole show's about. I love it. Similar and different perspectives, right? And so you're just hearing the old head version, right? I'm 46.
Well, I need all the other versions I can get. Because
well, I can't promise mine are right, but I think I can share my different perspectives, and I think that's one of them. Is, I've learned, someone's going to love you unconditionally. Your mom and dad love you unconditionally, right? If you get married to the right woman. You date the right girl.
Emphasis on the right one.
On the right one, absolutely. And that is definitely not, going to fix anything either, but to find someone that loves you unconditionally, right? When you have a child, you'll understand, because you love them unconditionally. I don't not have moments of anger and weakness with my child. I love my son to death, but you know him. He's hard-headed, and he's like me. He's made a lot of mistakes, right? Just a little bit. And so, yeah, there's moments of pride. There's moments of disappointment, but I love him. People are going to give you forgiveness, and you may not have earned it.
That's true.
But the fact that someone gave you forgiveness is going to make you more compassionate.
That's true.
I
can still appreciate that. So yeah,
absolutely,
that's a
good right? There's going to be things you're going to see, but what you're saying is, when you bleed for it, when you sweat for it, when you work for it,
that much sweeter.
It's that and it's that much more earned, which gives you a chemical. Like, I have a struggle when people give me things. I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
Right? When people give me things, I go back to my childhood of having to be given things. And I want to be the opposite of that guy now. I want to be doing the giving. I'm blessed to bless others. Exactly. And so I struggle with taking sometimes a compliment. I struggle with sometimes taking, someone's like, man, this is this. And they'll say some really nice things about me or what I've done or what I'm doing. And man, there's moments of me that immediately go, and I'm still at 46 working on this, where I'll just kind of like, yeah, I don't want to sound arrogant or I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to kind of laugh it off. And like, my mental coach is working with me on embracing that. Man, you've earned that success. There's a difference between arrogance and having confidence, and someone rewarding you with a compliment to say, man, you know what, you changed my life. Take that in. Soak that in. And what I can tell you now that you need that for is, this. You have to dig deep. You got to have some demons in you sometimes to go through the shit, right? So when you're in that gym, sometimes that exposes. They say fatigue makes cowards of all men. It's a very powerful comment. And so in that gym, you're going to have to need demons. Playing football, you need demons to ride a mountain bike and to get back on it. Right? You're always kind of
first race.
And and you have to have a demon in you that literally makes you want to grind. And it's not a demonic demon. It's just that, that chip on your shoulder, that let's fucking go, that this show, I think, in my life has embodied, because I've made a ton of mistakes. I've overcome a ton of things. And I come from good people, but not business, not money, not corporations. And so I made all these mistakes and then had to learn it the hard way, but I was given so much grace and so much mercy from certain people the universe put in my life. One of them is my best friend to this day, and they've opened a door but I had to walk through it. So you're going to find
still had
these
to
people.
take action.
Absolutely, but you can't. I would never, and I think young people have to listen to this the most. And if you're old and listen to this, you're probably an asshole because you don't understand what I'm saying. And that is that you need to appreciate the doors that are open for you in life. You need to appreciate that person that opens that door for you. Yes, at the fucking gas station. Yes, at the fucking restaurant. Say thank you. Show some fucking manners, appreciation. But that person that says, "Hey, you know what? I like your style, kid. Why don't you come in and I'll set you up with an interview." That's an open door. But John Mark, I'll tell you, people I'm from small nowhere Louisiana, right? There's people that are still there because they never got out, or maybe they love where they're at. But like you, when I was young, I knew there was something more for me. I knew there was something bigger than my little bayou town, right?
Occasion boy.
Yeah, la bon temps roulé.
Yeah.
So, yes, there was something for me, but at the end of the day, I got out. I changed it. It's like, okay, if I can, do what I did in Louisiana, if I can play college ball and I can play a little pro ball and I can become a nationally ranked bartender and I can become a break dancer and dance for guys like Run DMC and Salt and Pepper. If I can do that here, what can I do in a big city? And it just pushed me to do more. People open doors. I had to live in a basement for a year and a half because I didn't have any money. And when I moved out here, I didn't have anything. I couldn't provide. Right? And my wife, we had literally TK, we had him the first night she got pregnant the first night we moved to Georgia. Wow. I didn't have a job. My dad I was supposed to work for him. He had a heart attack. Things happened, right? Just like what you were telling about your livelihood, right? But people open doors. I got a job. That job then opened another door. And because I never wavered, there was a time I was working in the mall at Verizon Wireless. As a former athlete, as a former big deal in a small town, and I had to humble myself and work in a damn kiosk in the mall. And it was humbling. Yeah. But it wasn't as humbling as living in that damn basement. It wasn't as humbling as my dad coming down and saying, "Hey, I want to help you out a little bit and give me a little money." I'll never forget that fucking day because it's never, ever going to need to happen again in my life, John Mark. But I needed that moment. I needed that moment to feel that way. You needed to feel your body fall apart and the weakness and go, you know what? I'm going to come back and build my body stronger. And it triggered something in you. Your moments of struggle, your moments of weakness trigger moments of greatness, moments of opportunity. And I said this today, your money cannot get in the way of your mindset, and your mindset can't get in the way of your money. You have to balance that. Yeah. Right? And so for you, man, I get a little fired up because I love you and I know what you're capable of. I want you to always appreciate it because you're on the rise. We're going to talk about that. But one thing I love about you is people are drawn to you. When you have a light that people look at and naturally are drawn to, you're going to need some people to help you, right? You don't necessarily count on that. You can't. And they may not. But I'll guarantee you're going to come back and do my podcast in 5 years, and there's going to be 3 or 4 people, maybe someone listening to this podcast here that hears some of the things you got going and says, you know what, give me a call. I want to talk to you. And that one person, and you have the balls and the bravery and the mindset to take the step forward and not walk through the door, but run through that motherfucker. Bash through it.
When preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
That's what people call luck.
Jesse Itzler says, if you don't have a seat at the table, fucking make one.
Make one.
So, yes, so let's get into that. Let's talk about making a seat at the table. You come back through this. You've overcome. You're finding your purpose. Talk to me about now you're in competitive bodybuilding, training. Your body's a weapon in your mind and your business. It's become a very different mindset. Talk about how you came to that and where did that passion trigger for you?
So I'll just get really raw. Ever since that day when I started working out of the gym, out of the hospital, I just learned, just hyper obsessed on that. And that drove me into, I worked out to get stronger and I was playing football, but I enjoyed working out more than I actually enjoyed playing football. And I cannot put that hyper focused love into 2 activities. And I ended up choosing bodybuilding over football. And that hurt because I had just developed this vision of like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with the game. But I had to be real with myself and be like, okay, I can wake up every single morning at 4 a.m. and go to the gym and just fucking kill it with ferocious intensity, just locked in 100%. But I can't wake up and go practice football with that intensity because I do not just absolutely adore and cherish the game at like enough to do that. And that was what I had to be honest with myself, no matter what I wanted to, for like social, because, like for a young man, like, going and like playing ball or like being in sports, like that's got to be like the dopest thing, is to like be good at that, go play college ball. Like that's the idolization of that. And, but I had to be real with myself about that. But it started in, I was putting all of my discipline, all of my motivation, everything into just working out, getting bigger. And I was seeing a ton of results. But I started to, as years went by from that accident, I started to get comfortable again, and things started to crumple. I've always been, a decently good like student. Like I'm smart, but I was really good at taking tests. Great at taking tests, like history, things like I can go take a test and do good on something I've never ever learned before. But I wouldn't do my homework. I wouldn't turn things in on time because I was like, where's my ROI? And I had to learn, and that's why I'd be like, well, where's my return on investment? Like, I already knew, like, I would tell people, I might go to college, but I just knew that was not the role for me. But I would tell my mom that, and she's like, it doesn't matter. You have to learn to do things that you don't want to do. And I'll be like, okay, well, I can do things I don't want to do, but this is stupid, And I sort of still resonate with that. But there are times when I think back and I'm like, I was just giving myself an outing because it's like, oh, I didn't want to write that paper, but I still needed to do it. It doesn't matter my ROI. It's the fact that I have to just chisel that block and just make myself do the things that I really don't want to do, even if I'm like, oh, there's no return on investment, whatever. Because that's how my brain thinks. Like, okay, what am I going to get out of this? Like, I'll put in this much effort, but it's also going to, but not everything is like that. Some of the things you have to do solely because they benefit other people, or you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And
so how did you take that mentality and make it to where, why did you choose the bodybuilding? I know the focus, so that's like the focal thing, but what shifted in you that said, man, I'm going to do this for real? What was it, just a desire early?
Yes, but it sort of happened when I realized what I was getting into. Is I realized that I built up all this discipline, but then I started to see all these results because I had good genetics and I had all that like determination and everything. So I saw results
Shout out to Daddy Stevenson.
Yeah, and no, Mom Stevenson. Man, she got them crazy delts. That's where I got them from. And so, but I started to get like complacent in that as well. And I'd always told myself in other things, oh, you're just getting complacent because, you don't want to do this, or there's no ROI, everything like I was talking about. But then when the main thing that I'm hyper-focused on, I started to get complacent in that. I started to, like, skip meals, not be training as hard, doing things that were, negatively affecting me in the gym, and not letting that be my sole determining factor. I just started going backwards. And I didn't really realize it until I was literally starting to slip, and I started realizing I wasn't making progress, and I was literally going backwards. Now, everyone else looked at me and they wouldn't really tell that, but I knew, you're not training as hard as you should be. You're not like actually taking the steps to keep getting better. And that was
so you started to hold yourself accountable.
I started to hold myself accountable 100% because I had always been like, oh, this is because of this. The little bitch voice. It always knows exactly what to say because it's literally you. It's like when you wake up in the morning, it's like, my thing always used to be, I'm one of those people that I need sleep. I'm just a completely different person without sleep. Now, I can wake up at 4 a.m. like that and I'm good, but I have to get 6-7 hours of sleep or my brain just doesn't work. But it would always be that, oh, like, you need to sleep in 30 minutes longer because if you don't, you're not going to feel good the rest of the day. You're not going to be able to achieve your goals like you want. What's that 30 minutes of sleep going to do? But I just got in a habit of listening to that little bitch voice because I'm so naturally a salesperson that the bitch voice would sell me on giving in to, being complacent. And it got to the point where I was so drastically in a hole. I was just consuming so much. I was being a consumer, not a creator, which that's why social media is so bad. Social media can be so beneficial if you're creating, but if all you're doing is consuming, your brain is just rotting. I was just consuming. I was being a consumer of social media, a consumer of the gym. I wasn't being a creator and like making my own path. And it got to the point where literally my room was disgusting. I wasn't taking care of myself, anything. The only thing I would be is like, oh, I get that dopamine hit from the gym. But eventually, like I said, that also started to crumple. And once that crumpled and I realized I'm complacent in every single solitary thing, I was like, this has to change. It was so bad that one day, for like the 4th time, I hadn't charged my headphones because I had left my gym bag in my car the night before with my sweaty shoes and my sweaty gym clothes in it because I was too lazy to even get my bag out of my messy car and just plug my headphones up and put my stuff up. And I just remember just being so discombobulated before the workout that I couldn't even like get in that zone, that like sacred zone that I would always get in before my workout. And I didn't have music, and I was like, this is absolutely like terrible. Like what have I gotten to? Every single area of my life like was gone. Even like my work ethic that had been like so, grand in the scheme of things, like my whole life had just diminished. Like I wasn't doing anything hard or anything just because I was validating, oh, like I go to the gym and like I'm getting results. But I just got so complacent, and I was like, dude, like you have not made progress in anything. And I really just had to reflect and like just
so
think
let me
about,
stop you right there, right? Because there's people listening right now that are doing that right now in their life, in their friendships, in their relationships, in their business, in their health.
And it was in everything.
Right.
Every
Well,
aspect.
how you do anything is how you do everything in a lot of
100%,
ways, right?
100%.
So in that, what is the pivotal thing in your opinion? If you had to give advice to someone that is in that moment right now and they're sitting there going, you know what? I want to get better. I want to lose weight. I want to get healthier. I want to get a new job. I want the promotion. I want. But I'm really settling. I'm selling myself. I'm listening to my inner bitch, and I'm not doing the things that I know I need to do. How do you break out of that? What is your advice to that person that needs to get out of that?
I'll try to say this in the most uplifting way possible. Everyone has those thoughts when they're in that situation of all these things that they're telling themselves that they know deep down under a bunch of layers that they're lying to themselves. They know they're lying to themselves, but they just have such this guard around that they will not be true and admit, I have to fucking change this. I have to make a change. I'm being dishonest with myself about that. And it's those things that literally make you feel sick and question who you are when you like are actually honest with yourself, and you have to make a change on each one of those things. Literally like the identity that you have built up, because when you're in that situation, you've built up an identity of some lies. In all honesty, that's what I had done. I had built up an identity that like, oh, I'm disciplined. I'm going to the gym. Oh, I'm meant for more. I'm doing this. But where in my life was that actually showing anymore? It was nowhere. And I had to go down to that rock bottom and just be like, you're not working harder than anyone else in the gym at all. And you're literally just taking the fact that you have some good genetics and just being like, oh yeah, this is great. You are literally you're so undisciplined that you can't even clean your room or take extra 5 seconds to get your gym bag out and plug your headphones up and put your stuff in the dirty clothes, all this stuff. And it had bled into every aspect. The way I talked, my relationships, anything I did, what I ate. I was just eating anything because I was like, I'm not going to get fat. I'll still have abs. I can eat candy all day and I'll still have abs. And I just had to literally strip everything away and be like, who are you actually? And when I was honest with myself about all of those things, it hurt because I was like, I'm 16, 17 years old, and like, what have I truly accomplished that I feel like is a worthy thing of being like I've accomplished? And I couldn't tell you one thing, and I was like, 17 years on this earth, and I can't come up with one, magnificent thing that I've accomplished at all. And all of these habits that I'm establishing all day long are literally just detrimental. If I continue down this path, like, I'll be a nobody. And that was empty, that feeling. That was very empty. And I feel like a lot of people don't want to, strip away that identity and be honest with themselves, because you feel lost.
Feels like shit.
It feels like shit. But once you realize no one's coming to save you, no one's going to just come and be like, oh, it's okay. Like, you deserve it anyways. Like, you're great. Like, you're special just because you were created, all that stuff. And I didn't feel like that. But in the scheme of things, that's what it is. And you just have to literally look at yourself in the mirror and with full conviction, just I'm changing all of this, and I'm never ever going to look back. And you will take steps back. It doesn't matter. Wes Watson makes mistakes. It doesn't matter what he's like, I never mess up, but he does. He talks about the things he's like, in my relationship, he's like, I'll mess up. He's like, I get super angry. I project on other people, things like that. We all have our things that we'll struggle with, but you have to start now. Realize that no one is coming to save you, and have the mentality of, because it feels overwhelming once you've stripped all of that away. It's like you have nothing, and it's hard to start. You're like, where do I start if you don't have
Starting's
that
the hardest
block
part
to step on? Yeah. But you have to just take imperfect action and just start going. It's like, same with starting a business or starting anything that's hard. It's like, if you've never shot a gun before, or if you're trying to be a sniper and you want to hit the bullseye, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna wait till the perfect moment to shoot the gun. But then you shoot and you didn't even know about, take the wind into accommodation, or the fact that, the target is far away. And if you've never shot a gun before, you'd think, oh, I just point it right on the dot and it's going to go in. But, if it's super far away, you might have to, aim the gun up a little bit. You don't even know all these things until you pull the trigger, and then you can assess and reanalyze and do it again.
So let me ask you this. Do you know what, if you had to ballpark it, what do you think the number one PGA earner last year earned?
Like on the tour?
Number one tour.
Something absurd. Like just in that year?
Yeah.
Maybe like in between 50 to 100 mil at least.
It's probably, that may be with endorsements. He's probably somewhere in that $20-30 million
okay, yeah,
annual range, right?
I thought you were
just
talking about
tour earnings, right?
Just the tour? Yeah.
But then what do you think last place earned?
Way less, not even in the millions.
So I think, and I apologize, I know there's going to be some golf fanatics out there that crucify me for this, but they'll understand what I'm saying. I think when this study was originally done, it was like 275 or 325,000. So it's enough to basically cover their fees, their room, their caddy. I mean, they're barely making it, right? Barely. They're not big in the money. You want to know what the average difference is between first place and last place every year for like a long period of time?
Hit me.
2 strokes. That's one double bogey.
0.1%.
That's one eagle. Wow. That's 2 bogeys. That's a couple of pars instead of birdies. You're talking about minute differences. So there's a couple of things that your young mind is firing on all cylinders on, John Mark. And I was listening to actually Rogan and Goggins' first podcast today. I was just kind of going back and listening to some things. And, the one thing David said he gets, Joe really went on, was like, everybody's looking for that magic person, that magic thing. What's the secret? Yeah. The secret is that when it sucks, you get the fuck up, right? You do it. TK and I are kind of on a journey as right now we're challenging ourselves with anything that we don't want to do because it sucks. Do it. We're going to do that. Yeah. If I don't want to get up and cold plunge, I'm getting up and cold plunge. Why? Because I need that. My inner bitch is telling me not to do it. So, David was saying, everybody asks, how did you lose weight? How'd you become a SEAL? How'd you do 3 buds 3 times in 1 year? And he said, the reality is I just did it, right? Chad, talking about the Cocodona 250, he said, at times you just keep going, right? You're not doing it right. Yeah, you may be walking. Yeah, maybe you're limping. Maybe you're crawling. But if you keep going, and he used, I love Chad's country analogies because he's Georgia through and through, right? Country boy. And he just said, you're going to sometimes see a pile of crap and there's no way around it. You have to get through that crap. And are you going to get crap on you? Yes. But guess what? That crap eventually falls off. And you get stronger because you went through the crap. If you didn't go through that, if you didn't persevere, if you allow that inner bitch to stop you, if you allow your, ability to validate your weakness and say, hey, but it's okay. Well, your life may not be over. But I can guarantee you one thing, you're not going to learn from that moment. No. And if you learn anything, you learn that retreating is what you do. When it gets hard, you retreated. When you wanted something, but you weren't willing to. And so you're hitting some really important things, John Mark, because you're explaining, even at a young age, how when you were telling yourself through your genetics and all, you were just validating your half-assedness. And then eventually you just said, you know what, there's no way I can get to where I'm going to get half-assing anything. And, that is where I've seen you take off. That's where I've seen you really grow. And so as you get focused, you got your first bodybuilding competition coming up, or
next spring.
Next spring's going to be the first one.
I wanted to do it like while I'm still 19.
Yeah.
I mean, you can compete in the teenage division like even throughout being 20.
Yeah.
But if I do that and then I could step on a national stage, I could be, winning a national show like as a 19, 20.
So that's the goal, right? Kind of hit these shows.
That's the goal, yeah. But it's definitely business comes first. I love bodybuilding, but I can always bodybuilding is like your prime for bodybuilding is like 30s, like through like your late 30s. So it's like because that muscular maturity, everything. So it's like I'm not at a rush to do all this.
Now Arnold Schwarzenegger can argue a little bit with you there.
Yeah,
he was winning. He was winning,
but that was his goal because he knew
he was a freak.
He 100%. He put bodybuilding on the map.
Yeah,
and
it's a different game today.
Yeah, but I want to be like I don't want to be bodybuilding is my first because like I have the mindset, I have the genetics, like I know I have the talent to do it, but I also have so much more. I want to like financially compete and then be able to compete because bodybuilding is already so stressful on everything that if I'm doing that and then I'm worrying about, like paying my rent that month, I don't want to be doing that because that's taking out. I want to get to where I'm going over the next, 5-6 years and then really start honing in my craft in bodybuilding because I know it's not going anywhere. I'm going to be training like an animal every single that's never going away. Like,
now, are you still 18?
No, I'm 19. Yeah, so I turned 19 in end of May.
Yep.
So like I'm just a couple months and like I've still got a whole. If I compete next spring, that'll be good. But then I would take probably like a year or two, put on some more size and then be competing again. But the big things are
let me ask you this, right? So with the competition, because what that did is that really sparked. You talked about this money, right? I see you now, and you've started something I think is very wise, and it's taken off. Is your personal training?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you thought was, man, okay, I can go bodybuild. I love the way you're thinking, but right now you're starting a bodybuilding personal training business. And how's that going? And what was the thought behind that?
It's good. I see so many kids, like every kid in the gym now, because of the TikTok wave and what's going on, Instagram Reels, everything, they see all these influencers and they're like, oh, I want to be an influencer. I want to do that. But half the kids are missing the base. When I was 16, 17, literally when I was going through what I was just telling you, I wanted to be an influencer and I was doing all this stuff. And I also had to be real with myself in that. I was like, you don't have the physique. Why would people want to watch you? You don't have the physique. You're not there yet. You're also like, I didn't have the drive to actually put out the content. I just wanted to post a couple videos and it just come to me. That's what I wanted to happen. And there was so much that I still needed to learn. And what I love about bodybuilding is, you can be Chris Bumstead and he's, about to be 5-time Mr. Olympia. And there's still things that he learns. That's why, he has a coach as well. Hani Rambod, there's still things that he could learn. And he's won 22 Mr. Olympia titles. Absolute dog. Best coach in bodybuilding ever, in my opinion. But with this sport, you're always learning, always growing, always evolving. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it. And there's so many things that I didn't know back then that I'm like, man, if I could help, a kid that's just like me get there faster and make less mistakes and be like that older mentor to them, because I need mentors, and I think we should also mentor people that are coming up in life, even if like, not to put myself on a pedestal, like I'm better than these kids, but if they're, in the place that I was 2-3 years ago, there's things I can help them with, that'll help them avoid a lot of mistakes that I did and get to their goals faster because they have someone to look up to who it's like, I went through that.
Now, what's your Instagram handle?
At John Mark Steve, STEV. It's just, John Mark Stevenson. That's all my social media.
And when we post the episode, we'll make sure you attach it. Go check it out and see the physical transformation.
Yeah.
Shout out to the side piece over here, Chewy. He's been putting the camera work together. Yeah, man.
You see those edits? Those are all him. He's a wizard with the camera.
I've really liked the photography, Chewy. You're killing it.
Yeah.
And, you've had a real physical transformation. So talk about that. So 17, 18, going in your senior year, what'd you weigh?
I was about I think I was waking up at like 207, and right now I think this morning I woke up at like 216.
Yep.
So I've put on, but I was eating a lot more, like trying to bulk up when I was at 207. Right now I'm just kind of like maintaining. So the goal is to be, about 235, like pretty lean by the end of this offseason. And I want to step on stage at like 220, like stage weight.
Yeah.
I feel like I would look pretty solid at that. But, it's definitely been like when I was drinking like 2,500 calorie protein shakes and like throwing up because it was so much food back when I was 140 pounds, like the thought of like, I want to be 200 pounds was just a wild. And the fact that like I'm there now to think back, like now I'm like, oh, I haven't accomplished anything. But
if you just look back from your pictures the last couple of years,
100%.
Yeah. And I think again, kids today, you have a lot of people trying to that are literally trying to get into lifting or get into body development, bodybuilding, fitness, CrossFit, those things. And I think the thing that's most important is the fact that you have really people that are struggling, right? And so to come to you, you've done the wrong things, you've done the programs or this or that. Mm-hmm. You've learned from those mistakes. Now you sit at 216. You know how to put on weight right. You know how to eat right. Mm-hmm. What's your body fat sitting at right now?
I have no idea. I've never done an exact like body fat like test just because like I haven't gotten to the point where I need to. The more experience you get in the gym, the more you can like learn just from a look. Like that's what they're about.
Yeah.
I'm probably sitting about like 11, 12, and I'm not at all like tracking what I eat just because I know like I'm like, okay, I woke up this morning and I had like 8 ounces of steak and I had like 2 cups of rice. Like I know the carbs and that, I know the protein, and like so I can just know exactly what I'm having. And I'll put it in MyFitnessPal, but I'm not like dieting hard or anything like that. But just showing other kids like what they can. Like I was at Five Guys and I walked in there with, I don't usually walk around like with a tank top on because people usually give me like some weird looks and I'm just like, oh, it's comfy. And this dude, he was very overweight, you could tell. But it was before my leg day. Like I don't eat out like that much, but like if I was carbing up before leg day and I had earned it. And so and I go in there and he looks at me and he's like, no disrespect, man. He's like, but you look badass. And it brought a smile to my face because most people like, they don't even compliment me. I thought people would when I was younger, but they don't say anything. But it's fine. That's not why I'm doing it. And I was like, thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. And he was super nice. And he came over to me while I was eating and I could tell he was a little like, he didn't want to come off like Sean. He was like, do you mind if I ask you a question? I was like, yeah, sure. I knew it was coming. He was like, so like, how would you go about like starting to lose a little bit of weight and things like that? And, I just started telling him, and I was talking to him about like, I'm like, man, really the key to losing weight is calories in, calories out. It's not optimal for, feeling productive and having a good mindset to be eating McDonald's all day long. That's a different story. But if you're solely talking about losing weight, you can eat McDonald's all day long, be in a calorie deficit, and you will lose weight. You're going to feel like shit and you're going to look soft, but you can lose weight doing that. People think you have to eat lettuce and spinach and, tofu all day long to lose weight, and it's not like that. Now, you want to optimize for brain health and, your body's an engine. You want to put the best fuel in it that you can. But if you're solely wanting to lose weight or put on weight, a calorie surplus, you will gain weight no matter what you're eating. A calorie deficit, you will lose weight. So you take your maintenance calories. Like my maintenance was probably around like 4,000 calories a day. I'll stay the same weight if I eat that. So if I just did, 100 calories above that, I'm going to gain weight. If I'm doing that every day, it's going to be a little bit of weight. If I do, 1,000 calories above that every day, I'm going to gain more. Or same opposite. If I'm eating, 3,900, I'm in a deficit because my body maintains at 4,000. I'm in a deficit. I'm losing weight. So if I do cardio, I'm burning more calories a day. I'd be able to eat more. And people just don't understand that it's like that much to a science, and you can manipulate it like that. And how people think that like carbs are the enemy. Carbs aren't the enemy. It's about how you're eating. Before my lifts, I carb up an extreme amount because my muscles just absorb the carbohydrates and it's just filled with glycogen. So I'm having a lot of carbs and a lot of fluid, especially before a leg day. Like I was eating those Five Guys fries, and I went in there, and when I was doing, 5 sets of, 315 for like 12 reps, like to failure, just, doing some like my legs were pumping, they had veins coming out, and thus those carbs coming into work, and people just don't understand it. And it's wild because to me, it's like that seems normal because I've learned all this throughout the years, but being able to help like kids and just like bring that into perspective, it's so like fulfilling because like I'm serving them and they're like, dude, like I trained with this kid the other day and he was like, dude, like just one workout, like you helped me so much, like I'm feeling my muscles so much better, like it's great. And like that was just so fulfilling to me because like I put like 16 hours into writing his program and doing all this stuff. But it's like he's getting value out of that, so that makes me want to. I'm not just writing this program for myself.
So was this the first person you helped?
Yeah, this was actually the first kid. It's just all been organic through like Instagram. That's all I've been doing. I just was kind of putting some feelers out there because I'm like, I have all this knowledge. It would be selfish of me to just not like share it with people. And there's some really expensive coaching plans out there and everything. Obviously, I'd love to just do it for free because my main goal is just to help my boys out like in my community. But
here at LFGwBG, never apologize for making money. And anything you do great, you don't do for free.
Exactly. Anything you do great, you don't do for free. And I'm putting my time into this, and there is a
that
value.
Doesn't mean you're not charitable.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, you make that money back.
There is a value to me sitting down for 12, 14 hours and literally writing you a custom meal plan and training plan and everything. But being able to see people benefit from that, it's great. And I have my boy Marcus. I'm really excited to start posting about his transformation because he was like, dude, the only activity I get is like 50 to 100 push-ups a day. And I was like, bro, we're going to get you right. And like I just had him on, and I was like, bro, like, we're going to have you, like, you're going to have abs. He's like, I want to bring up he was like, I don't want to be super jacked like you. Because some people don't, they don't want to, like, look like a bodybuilder and things. But they just want to have that confidence, like, feeling good in the shirt and everything. I was like, dude, like, you're going to have abs. Like, I'm going to get you there. Like, if you give me 110%, I'm giving you 110%. So that's what I expect. He's like, dude, I've never even thought about myself having abs before and things like that. And just, like, hearing him, like, smile when he says that and, like, knowing that I can get him there if he gives me that effort and just telling him all these things and watching their brains just, like, light up and be like, this is great, and not feel, like, hopeless despair in it. It's just so fulfilling. Yeah. It's so fulfilling. And it makes, like, me feel, like, happy for like the younger me, like knowing it's like I'm kind of fulfilling that dude that was depressed. I think depression's sort of a mindset, but that's a later conversation.
I think we talk about mental health all the time. I mean, we probably all know somebody that's committed suicide. We went through it with Jordan at a young age. Shout out to never forget my man Jordan Foster. Ever since Jordan, I was 12, right? And it was tough, and it was a great kid. So ever since then, and the others that I've lost due to that, I think it's okay, man. You gotta, sometimes as a tough guy, we think toughness is not showing emotion.
Real men cry, bro.
Oh, bro.
Real men cry, bro.
Ask TK. He's seen it. And also, I will kiss my son dead on the damn cheek wherever, whenever, because I'll drink a daiquiri with an umbrella. It doesn't matter because here's the deal. I know what I am. I don't give a shit what you think. So at the end of the
You
day,
have that
that's
inner
important.
validation from your actions that no one can strip that away from you.
Well, confidence is either real or fake, and some of us are always faking a little bit, and then it can become real, and then some of it's real. But fake it till you make it is a real thing.
As a man thinketh, so is he. I heard Alex Hormozy says, I think there's a quote he got from someone else, but he says, boys are confident, men are certain.
Yeah.
I loved that.
And that comes
really
through all the adversity you're going through and all the lessons, right? Like I didn't know, I always say in my 20s, I didn't listen to anybody. Like I was rebellious and I was just mad at the world and, I didn't listen to anybody. I got in a lot of trouble. I did a lot of fun things. I was minorly, like I like to say, small town famous, successful. But at the end of the day, I wasn't quality. I was a good person. I did good things. But I think even, man, in my 30s, I was trying to find out, am I a bad guy that does good things occasionally?
Yeah.
Or am I a good guy that does bad things occasionally? And I don't think I could really answer that question. You could say, well, why? You were a good person and you did good things. Yeah, but I also did bad things. And my mind thought poorly. I hadn't really embraced who I feel like God and the universe developed me to be. And so I think that, it took a while, but I finally made that decision. And I know I'm a good guy that does bad things occasionally. I know I make mistakes, and I think people all do. Just like depression, we all face adversity, right? We've talked about it enough on here, and it's always going to be in our lives. But positive mindset, overcoming it, keeping people around you that are uplifting. I always say that darkness cannot exist where light does.
Yeah.
And so if you go through darkness with no light, you're just going to be consumed by the darkness, and you are going to be depressed, and you are going to give up, and you are going to quit, and you are going to think you're less than, and you are going to listen to that abusive husband or a boyfriend or girlfriend that's just told you you're a piece of shit.
And that compounds.
It does compound, just like
You go right into that dark mindset, and then you can find yourself just snowballing. Because those thoughts, they just start going deeper and deeper.
Yeah, but what I and John Mark, you're 100% right. But what I don't agree with today, and this is my, this is young and old talking. Victim mindset, yes, but more for me, it's the quit. There's just get the fuck over it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I understand there's negatives in the world. I understand. But you pointing them out, you screaming just to do it, it's not being heard. Yeah. Your actions. You want to make a difference? Go fucking make a difference. You want to do something? Get your action involved and show, and people will follow, right? Actions.
100%.
People, you look at time over time and politics and COVID and just all the crazy shit that has went on in this great, great country of ours that is the best country in the world. And that's why people are bleeding into this country every day they can, praying they can just step foot on the ground that sometimes our own people piss on.
If you don't like it, then leave.
I think that's a portion
Straight
of it,
up.
But I also feel like people don't have adversity. They've grown up in this country, so they're used to it. But growing up a missionary's kid, being around third world countries my entire life, I remember praying I could just come back to this country, and literally when I got here kissing the ground, that I was like, I'm so happy I'm back here. Because you don't understand how good bottled water is if you don't have it. You don't understand how good food is here if you're in a third world country. You will. And I think so much youth today, they just want people to solve their problems for them, and they claim that they can't, and they claim there's all this adversity or all this reason that they can't be successful. And you can look at any race, you can look at any creed, you can look at any religion, you can look at anything. There are people inside that somehow overcome, that somehow get through that. They break through the wall, they break through the glass ceiling, and they say, fuck that, I'm going to figure it out.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Right? And if that isn't successful mindset, how did all those people get that through the adversity? And how do we expect tomorrow, if we cleaned everything up, how can you really say that we have that today? So, in boxing, we always say, working with the fighters, you want to know who's the hungriest? Look at some of the poorest people. Yeah. They're the ones that are winning the belts and the titles because that's their way out. Yeah. Here in this country, you can be an influencer. You can do something really easy. You can, there's so much money. And growing up again hard, sorry for the, old guy talk, but I went in countries where, they don't go to the bathroom in clean water. Yeah. We go to the bathroom in water that people walk miles to get or pray they could find. Yeah. And, that we don't need to get too far down the hardship road. I don't want to. I don't want to submarine it, but it is something where to hear you, I think, and the young people listening and the older people, man, if you're 35 and you need an ass kicking, don't listen to him and hear, man, young kids, shit, call this dude, hit him up on Instagram. He's got fire in his belly. He's going to wake you up. He's going to build you a meal plan. He's going to get you. Fuck the age, right? It's the mindset and the motivation. And what I love is you've overcome it and you're now ready to spread that light to anyone, not male or female, age. Just be serious and know that he's got limited capacity. I think there's only a few more spots. So check a look. We'll post it out. Check out John Mark's page, see what he's doing. And so with your personal training business, I'm excited. That's awesome. Yeah. Now, in this journey, let's get to some Mantorch. I got these
Mantorch candles,
awesome candles that I got here, man. Look at this thing. And this is, I'm very proud. LFG, we're representing this for the first time, right?
BG has the very first of the new collection of candles that we have coming out. The one that you see right there, the nightclub, that was kind of our first design, but we've got this new contemporary design coming out. All custom.
So this was the first one, right?
Yeah, so we had Cuban cigar, nightclub, and gunpowder.
So I don't know if you can see this, but there's some muscles on here. It's very masculine, but if I must say, ladies would like it too. Yeah, it's got a little smell, huh?
The ladies love that one.
The ladies love that one. All right, and then now we've added the wood top to it.
Yeah, the wood top, and then the black jar. It's still got the crackling wood wicks that everyone loves those because it's like a nice, soothing, masculine crackle. But I custom make all of the fragrances. So a lot of these candle companies, they pour in waxes that are terrible for you. They all smell the same. They're just copycatting each other with the same manufacturers. I hand blend and hand create every fragrance. So
man, I think we need to talk about an LFG scent, bro. I think we need an LFG scent.
I'll make a custom LFG with BG. I'll make a big old one too that we can sit in the corner.
We might need that. We love our candles around here. Badass candles. Shout out to them. This is awesome. And I will say, we love our commercials. So, Haley, Mantorch. That's right. This is Cuban cigar smell. So if you'd like to smell like a Cuban or you've had one in you, wait a minute. Haley, never let me do these advertisements again. Sorry, I apologize. Let's cut that out. Edit that out.
Unleash your masculinity.
Yeah, you're a little too young to remember the President Clinton cigars, but for my older watchers and viewers, you know what I'm talking about right there. Might call it the Monica Lewinsky candle. I don't know.
Work with the Archer.
It could be, Cuban cigars. I don't know. There's something there.
Oh my
But
goodness.
hey, listen, literally check it out. I'm excited. If you are a young dude, an old dude, single dude, and you need your place to smell good, because we know, especially if you work out, it's funky. Don't forget, don't get scorched on a date. Get Mantorch.
Get a Mantorch.
All right, my man. So talk about this. What's the goal with it?
So I think going back to what you said earlier, I really had to hold myself back from interjecting right then. But when you said about being a light, it's more than just a candle company to me. Because I've got a ton of passion for the brand because it's the first company that I've scaled, learned everything, made all these mistakes with. And it's been wild because, as a 19-year-old kid, I'd never really been a candle fanatic or anything like that. I'd lit candles here and there, and I think there is a really heavy weight that scents carry with nostalgia and thinking about people and what it can bring to the vibe of a room. But when I when I got into handcrafting candles, and I was like, man, this is hard as shit. I did not know that there was formulas and fragrance oils and everything has to be perfect going into this blend, and I was really bad at it. My personality, I was like, oh, I got to get good at this. I got to get good at this. And once I realized, I was like, man, I can just make the best quality product that's possible. Because a lot of these entrepreneurs nowadays, people are starting clothing brands, things like that. A manufacturer's making it for them.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to really get to that amazing quality. But I refused to, for my first business, sell a product that I didn't know 100% was the very best quality.
So this is 100% American, man-made by you.
Everything is, and even all of the products, I was searching for those black jars for months, and I wanted them on the first drop, but I couldn't find any that were in America. They were all Alibaba, China. I was like, I'm not doing it. So I finally found some that are here. So I spend way more money. I lose a lot of margin sourcing everything from Texas, Miami, Florida, all places around here. So I'm supporting other small businesses as well, but everything is custom made. Everything is healthy and clean for your environment, clean for you. There's no toxins in them or anything. And I make sure that every single candle comes out the highest quality. And that's like, I take a lot of pride in that, because I know like I'm not gonna have a bad review being left by a person because, you know, it didn't come out of the quality that, you know, that I spoke about it. It's like I have assurance that like I put my like soul and my love into crafting this, and they're gonna get it, and they're going to feel that, because you can feel it, you can smell it once you light it. Like, you know, you're like, wow, like time went into making this. But I think it goes.
What's the website?
mantorchcandles.com. Just like that. This new drop's coming out within the next 2 weeks. Those candles are available right now. Amazing scents. Everyone loves them. They just don't have the top, but they burn. The big ones burn for over 110 hours. So they're burning for a long time. Great quality candles.
And then what's the Instagram handle? I see you on Instagram
candles.
now, right?
Mantorch Candles on Instagram, Mantorch Candles on TikTok. We post some funny videos on TikTok. You can see the little logistics of me in the shop with the apron on, making them and stuff, making some funny videos. But it's great. I've learned so much about organic marketing and, like, you know, marketing on social media, things like that, and just building my personal brand along with it. But really, Mantorch is about being a light, pun intended. Literally being a light. It's that showing, it's like, I want our community of guys, it's like, have Mantorch to, it's like, all of them. You walk into someone's apartment, you see a Mantorch burning, you know, you're like, I can resonate with them because their mindset's where I'm going. Like,
it's like if I see someone wearing a Lions Not Sheep hat.
Exactly. You know instantly.
Yeah,
you're like,
I know
oh,
what you're saying.
Exactly. You've instantly built rapport with them. So you walk in, you know, like, this guy's clean, sophisticated. He's sharp. Like, he you know, he keeps his stuff together. And then that mood that Mantorch candle like sets, because you can smell it when you light them. It's like, if you've been around them, you know, okay, that's a Mantorch. That's not just one of these, you know, plastic candles from Kroger that smells like they sprayed deodorant in a can and, you know, scammed you for a lot of profit. Like, you know.
Shout out to Yankee Candle in my college days and Strawberries and Cream. You made a lot of dates work, so appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah,
I know they were shitty. They're not this good, but you got me through college, and I appreciate that.
The problem is, if you would have had Mantorch back then, you might have about 8 or 9 TKs running around, but that's for a different story.
Man,
you know,
we're gonna edit that out for sure.
That's great. If you don't light a Mantorch, if
hey, look, the marketing on this might have just changed. Hang on one second. Let me see. If you are looking to procreate, get your Mantorch candle and find out you can get inseminate. Wait a minute. My bad. I don't know. Let's not do
Whoa.
that. So I think it's great, man. I love it.
I'm John Mark Stevenson, and I endorse this message.
I would say, ladies, don't slip either if you're looking for a gift for your dude. You know what I mean? Like candles. I can tell you said something that actually really resonates with me, and I think people getting to hear it, seeing that on your website, talking about it is good business in itself. Because like my mom, when she was alive, she had cancer, and we played this game. So like one of my favorite things in the world is candles. Right? Yeah. Anybody that knows me knows that. You know, and so there was a candle company called, shout out to Birds of Paradise Candle. They had the Strawberries and Cream candle. And literally it would make my mom's house. She always had it. And it was like the greatest smell I've ever smelled in the world. I mean, it was like, and it was like home. It was my mom. Yeah. And so every time I'd go home, I would steal her like $70, $80 candle. Wow. And I would take it to my apartment. And, you know, she was like, "Did you steal my candle?" And I was like, "Yeah." And we laugh, play around. Yeah. And then she would hide it. And so it just became this thing. And when she passed, you know, to this day, I get those candles from certain family members and friends because they know, like, if I light that candle right now, I'm going to think of my mom. Wow. You know, so I think, you know, you're onto something with a sense. I love that, you know, you've got brand representation. So many, I think, new businesses, as you know, I coach a lot of businesses around the country, and I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't appreciate the little details. And when you talk about your brand quality, when you talk about sourcing, when you talk about adding the jars, you just hear the care. And I think that's important for anybody looking to buy a product. The fact that it's American made, to me right now, matters, you know, also. So, and to know and listen to, you know, you should definitely take that excerpt of you just describing how you put that into the candles. And that's your commercial, man, because consumers today want
these
that.
Clips? Sweet, nice.
We'll make sure we get you some clips. We'll see how you do. We got to figure this out.
Yeah, hopefully when we review the footage, I didn't do too bad. You know?
We'll see. No, you're doing great, man, and it's been fun because I think, again, this show's all about the unknown, you know, and, you know, you have shown in this just short time we've been talking, hour and some change, you have shown adversity over injury, mindset, complacency. You've overcome. You have found a rhythm that I think people in their 30s don't really have right now or are looking for. And if they do, they're successful. So I see all the successful traits, man. I see the business. I love what you're doing with the personal training. I think people are going to get you. And I think what you see in this that I don't think a lot of people know about you because you're young and you haven't been put on the platform yet, right? Podcast. If you're out there, get this guy on. You see how good he is, right?
Love podcast. Get me on. I will come and I will speak for 3 hours.
And
let's go.
you know, I think also you've got natural sales ability. So I think you make a good guest for podcasts. I think also, you know, you've got anybody watching you just sees you're what I call a passion pitcher. You put your passion into it, which means that you get more than just a product. You're getting a little bit of that person because you're kind of psycho in that sense. You care that much, right? So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Keep that. That's it,
my
man.
closing.
Hey, you know what? And that's a great way to close. This is LFG with BG. That's John Mark Stevenson. That's Man Torch Candle. I'm BG, and we're out.
Let's fucking go.
Here we go.